Well, hello, good afternoon, good morning, hola, ni hao, bonjour, my friends from all over the world. Welcome to Collaboration Nation podcast, the law of collaboration, where we collaborate with some of the greatest minds available today to bring you some life hacks, some laws of life that can assist you on your journey. And my name is Drew Berman. I'm from New York. I live in Connecticut. Today I have one of my favorite guests. I'll introduce him in a moment. He's just all around awesome. I'm Drew. I've been an entrepreneur my whole life, and I went through struggles almost for a decade. I got seduced into the world of personal development, and I was wondering, I was doing all these affirmations, I was buying all the courses, and nothing was changing. And then all of a sudden I started to have some shifts, and I started to realize that there's some laws. So we are living into the laws of success, and we're going to be talking about some of those laws today: the law of collaboration, the law of attitude, the law of peak performance, especially the law of gratitude. It's the highest conscious word above the word love, and that's why we live here at Law of Collaboration. Today I'm going to collaborate with a really great man. He's a good human. He's a good businessman. He's a good friend. He's a best-selling author. A lot of you probably know of this book already, Pivot. But welcome to Law of Collaboration, my friend Adam Markel. How are you, sir?
Thank you very much, Drew. It's great to be here.
Great
really
to
happy
have
to be
you.
here.
And I know you're from the East Coast of North America. I know you have a life in New Jersey, New York, and then some vacation homes in the beautiful area in Massachusetts. But now you live in California. You've been all over the world. Where are you today?
I'm actually in San Diego, and it's sunny San Diego most of the time, but not today. It's actually chilly San Diego this morning.
Awesome.
So I always say that kind of in a funny, with a little bit of a recognition that people from back where I grew up in New York or elsewhere in the world or in the Midwest or Canada are laughing, literally laughing at this moment, thinking, geez, this guy doesn't even know what cold is. Well, I do know what cold is, and now I am a wimp, because when you live in the palm trees and sunshine in San Diego, when it dips below 60 degrees, we all shiver.
I see you're wearing a sweater. I mean, here in Connecticut, gosh, yesterday was 70, today it's 40, so it's craziness. So I know we have a lot to talk about, but I always like to kind of start off the cuff and just kind of throw a bomb your way and see how you react. And so what's one thing in 2018 that you're excited about?
Well, that's not a bomb, I don't think. But in any event, I'm excited about my life in 2018.
Yeah.
I'll answer the question seriously. When the new year was, when we were going from midnight on December 31st, 2017, and the clock struck 12, and Randy and I are kissing, and music's playing, champagne is flowing. I had this feeling. I had a feeling beyond just the fact that I feel so blessed to be married to a woman I met in college, the love of my life. So it's 28 and a half years later. We have 4 kids, and such a beautiful life together. So many things to be grateful for. The feeling I got in that moment, in addition to all of that gratitude, was that this year I felt something was going to be even better, even more creative opportunity. That there just felt like a lot of clutter in my life in 2017. I think in speaking to a lot of people, they felt kind of similar to that. And that clutter, and even the stuff that might even be considered sort of toxic, because I think clutter is toxic. Busyness can be toxic. All of that just seemed to be receding. And I had a rush of feeling that made me really excited, even more excited than normal, about what this year had in store for us. So I'm excited about life, brother. That's
why we want to have you here on the Law of Collaboration, because I know if we throw our best ideas into the mix, we're going to pull out the best ideas. So you're not only a best-selling author of the amazing book, Pivot, which, as you know, I was reading on my journey around Israel and Greece, and I have pictures of me in really amazing places reading it. This book is really powerful, and I know you went through a great pivot in your life. Tell us, how was it? A lot of our listeners know you, and they're on this because they know you. A lot of our listeners don't yet know you. You've ran one of the top personal training development companies in the world. You've trained tens of thousands of people. You've had huge impact on me, a lot of my friends and colleagues. How did this all happen? You were a lawyer in New York, making a lot of money, but what happened?
I was just a miserable attorney. Just, you can have sympathy for me being cold and living in San Diego just about as much as you could have sympathy for me being a wealthy attorney in New York City, right? But no, I woke up pretty much every day I guess I was practicing law for about 5 years, 6 years. And like many people, I think I didn't put a lot of thought into my career choice. I have met a lot of folks around the world, as you said. I've been blessed to do that, and I don't think people put enough thought into the career choices they make, especially early on. And that's reasonable. I mean, we're not given a whole lot of training in high school or even in college that focuses on what our gifts are, or what our real deep-rooted desires are. What are the things that we most want to have our life be about? What's the legacy we want to create? These are not topics that are typically discussed in high school or even in college. They're the things of personal development or seminars and trainings that happen later on. And so I just chose this profession of being a lawyer. At first I was a teacher. I pivoted a number of times, although I certainly didn't call it at the time. I was a middle school English teacher, that kind of thing. And then I went down this path to becoming a lawyer and entered this, let's say I entered the phone booth like Clark Kent, entering the phone booth, coming out Superman. I entered and came out as a lawyer, with suit and tie and briefcase, and passed the bar exam and all that kind of thing. And 18 years later, I was waking up in the morning, putting my feet on the floor and feeling this dread, this anxiety and angst about the day ahead. And I think it's a lot of people. I mean, I knew what I was going to end up doing was spending an hour and a half in the car commuting to Manhattan and do work that I didn't love, be around judges and other lawyers who were not any happier than me. In fact, many of them were more unhappy than me. And that would be the environment. That would be where my soul would spend the day. And then I'd spend another hour and a half or 2 hours commuting back to our house in New Jersey later that afternoon, or evening, I should say. And more often than not being home in time to kiss my kids goodnight or have dinner with the family. And I did that day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. As we know, we blink our eyes, it's 5 years. We close and open our eyes again, it's another 5 years. And that went on. And so my pivot was born out of misery. I just didn't know what to do. And it culminated in me having what I thought was a heart attack, and my wife took me to the hospital, got me in the emergency room, and I'm thinking I'm dying of a heart attack. And it turns out that I was having an anxiety attack. Too much coffee, the doctor said, too much stress, too little sleep, like a lot of folks. I was having trouble sleeping at night, taking Ambien to get to sleep, that whole kind of thing. And I picked up a book. Somebody had given me a copy of The Road Less Traveled. Scott Peck wrote a beautiful book, Dr. Scott Peck. And I read that book, and I started reading more often, more books, books on the inner world, the psychology books, and books about performance, and books that were in the personal development space. And I never read anything like that, never been to a workshop. My parents weren't seminar goers. There was none of that in my house. So this was all very new to me. And, what ended up happening was I fell in love with the work and wanted to be not only sharing the work with other people, being an ambassador for the work itself, but I wanted to teach. And what I realized at a certain point was that my DNA was of a teacher. My true identity was not a lawyer, even though there were aspects of the law that brought out my true identity. My true identity was as a teacher. But I didn't want to go back to teaching middle school. So I found that this opportunity to teach people in connection with their desire to learn and grow, whether it was for business purposes or pure personal development, really fit well for me. And so that's what I started doing. I started teaching and training and traveling around the world, and ultimately wrote that book, Pivot, The Art and Science of Reinventing Your Career and Life, which is a case study of my own reinvention and about a dozen other people going through all kinds of changes. So for me, I didn't get a midlife crisis. I ended up with a midlife calling.
Oh, I love that. Oh, that's a really good use of. I've seen you speak many, many times, and I'm trying to learn the art of language and how we can shift and pivot, the things we focus on. And gosh, midlife crisis to midlife calling is really a great creative use of language. Throughout the book, you talk about the wake-up call, having the pivot, the moment, the phone booth, all these little, I think back as I was reading this book, and I'm going to read it a second time, the quest, I just opened to one random page, the quest for bravery, the fear means danger, all this like really great ideas and concepts. But what I like about you is they're not tongue-in-cheek. This is not only what you live, it's what you teach. And how many of us can go through a midlife calling and pivot and change the directional? And I could think of several pivots I've had in my life, in my journey. One of them is creating this, law of collaboration and just, realizing that we're not in competition. We're working together. Another one of the laws is the law of gratitude. But I was thinking, you are very astute in rituals. That's something that's been a powerhouse for you. And tell us a little bit about that. What have the rituals for you done, and how do they work? How do you teach them?
Thank you. No, Drew, I think rituals are really important in a number of ways. The first thing I'll just say real quick to those folks wondering about ritual, do I mean something religious? I don't. These are things that we do consciously. And so you could call them habits. But to me, habits, when I think of habits, I think of the things we do unconsciously, like how we brush our teeth and the way we drive home from work and that kind of thing. What I focus on are consciously created habits or master habits that I also AKA call rituals. So that's the context for what a ritual is. And I use them in a variety of ways. And one is to create something that everybody who's pivoting, which to me, I haven't met anybody yet where I've asked that question. How many of you are reinventing some area of your personal life, your business life? Raise your hand if that's you. Everybody's hands go up. So everybody's pivoting. Either consciously or unconsciously, and change is a constant in the universe. This is one of those great paradoxes, or even you could call it an oxymoron, that change is a constant, and it certainly is. So to be great at change, not just endure change, not just survive or manage change, but to be able to utilize, to create alchemy out of change is so important. And that's what pivot is. Pivot is a euphemism for change or reinvention. And to me, to be able to be great at that process, you have to be resilient. Because as you know very well through your business experience, there's every single day, it's like you get knocked down with something. I mean, Gary Vee talks about this. It's like being an entrepreneur is like getting up in the morning, getting punched in the face, smiling and going, thank you. Thank you, sir. May I have another? Punch me again. And every day, that's sort of the experience of being an entrepreneur. I mean, it's not a constant barrage of that type of experience, but we've got to be resilient, because if we quit or if we stop, if our idea doesn't see the light of day because we didn't survive, then nobody's life changes. Then there's no greater, the vision isn't executed, and therefore our mission on the planet isn't fully realized. And that's what we're all here to do, is to actualize our mission for being, our reason for being. And that takes strength. It takes the ability to bounce back. It takes the ability to stand up when other people are not willing to do that. It takes being really clear, creating clarity in the midst of chaos, which so many people can't do that. As soon as the storm rages, as soon as the wind blows, they lose their minds. They lose their ability to be clear, so they can make better decisions when other people can't. These are fundamental skills of a successful person, not just a successful business person, but a successful human. And to me, to be resilient, we've got to create rituals for resilience. So among the rituals that I have are a morning ritual, the way I begin the day. And if you'd like, I can share that, with your listeners. But rituals are fundamental to creating resilience. That's the point.
So let's hear about your morning ritual. Because
Okay.
I'm in a pivot of my life and career. I got a busy schedule. I run a big business. I'm building a big brand, and my mornings I've been trying, and I'm using that word on purpose because I haven't perfected a morning ritual. I do like to meditate. I do like to set my day up in my mind's eye. I do like to exercise. And then I'm dealing with some family responsibilities in the morning and juggling a teenager and an 8-year-old in school. So I'd love to hear your morning rituals. And I think a lot of people will get value as I get value.
So to me, the morning ritual ought to be something that's holistic, that's intended to create some harmony for yourself. So something that's mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical. So when you think about the things you could do to cultivate a more resilient life, from the moment that you wake up in the morning, from a mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical standpoint, what are some of those things that we're talking about? So for me, the first thing to me is the waking moment. That first waking moment is crucial. That's when the soil of your mind is the most fertile. And I want to plant certain seeds in my mind at that moment. So the first thing I do, and folks that are familiar with my work know this because I repeat it and cascade it over and over, and it never changes. So the first thing that I'm going to set out as an intention for all of your listeners, for you, Drew, for myself, for all of our families, for the whole world, really, is that we wake up tomorrow. So we get a chance, just like we did today, to wake up. Now, if you don't think that's a blessing, if you don't think that's something to be grateful for, just imagine that as you take that first breath of the day, that first conscious breath of the day, there are people who are taking their very last breath in that moment. So that moment is sacred. It's holy. It's special. And regardless of whether you have challenges in your life, regardless of whether you think you have a purpose or there's an assignment for you or not, in that moment where you realize you've been given a breath, the breath of life, there are also babies being born in that very moment who are taking their first breath of life. That is a special moment. So step one is waking up. Step two in that moment is to be grateful right then and there, to cultivate this feeling and this emotion of gratitude for your life, for the breath that you are taking. And step three, if you're willing to do it, is to say some words out loud, either from the bed or when your feet hit the floor. I say these words every single day. I love my life. I love my life. I love my life. And people have always asked me, say, Adam, when you started to say that, you were pretty miserable. So how did you say that and have it be true? And I said, well, I did start saying that before it was true, meaning before I truly loved my life, I wanted to. I wanted to love my life. And I believe so firmly in the power of what we say and how we manifest with our words, how we bring things into creation the way. And I'll use the word God. It doesn't have to be your word. It could be source, creator, whatever you like. But to me, I believe in that the world was brought into being, at least through the story of the Bible, which is a pretty good story, through those words, let there be light. Now, again, I'm not getting into science here. I'm just talking about the science of creation. And I know that when I speak, I create things. That's my experience of being. And so if I speak negatively about people, I bring that whole negative. I bring to fruition the negativity that my words are prophesizing. So we don't have to get into that further. I'll just say, when I speak those words, have I spoken those words thousands of times? I love my life. I love my life because I spoke those words. I didn't love my life first and then decide to say those words. I decided to say those words and then began to more and more and more and more love and appreciate my life and be grateful for my life. So that's my morning ritual. It starts and it takes 10 seconds to begin the day. From there, I cultivate my body. I take care of my body. We have a green drink recipe, Randy and I, we make every day. And so before I'm up for an hour or so, I've had this green drink. I've cultivated my emotional body. I've gotten into my heart. I've gotten into gratitude. I sit down and I read for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, something that brings me even into a greater spiritual understanding for myself. So I have a book that I use, an Emmett Fox book. It's called Around the Year with Emmett Fox. And again, I'm not a religious guy, but I'm a very deep believer in the power of our spiritual connection to everything, to everything in creation. And I want to be in that space as early in the day as possible, before the emails get me, before the social media gets me, before I get on phone calls, and things start to get into my head space and my heart space that interferes with truth. So why I read something that gives me that is in the spiritual realm is that it reminds me, it's a reminder of what's true. And so those are just a few of the things that I do to nurture myself and create resilience in my life. And again, it's mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical. And I also will go to the gym. I'll go swimming. I'll take a walk. I'll walk the dogs. And all of that within the first hour or two of waking each and every day.
It's amazing. You got me a little emotional because, the way you describe that first breath is actually really magical because, we just had someone, not a good friend, but a neighbor friend, our age, no signs of sickness or disease, dead one day. And we didn't know why. We didn't know what happened. And that first breath, one thing that I just learned about these affirmations about why I love my life, turning them into a question, why do I love my life? Which instantly helps my brain start to remind me all the things that I love about my life. So I love how you're talking about gratitude. It's why we're teaching the law of gratitude. So what's one thing that you can teach from this great book? I mean, I could teach a couple things. I love your language from going into clarity, to going from clarity to momentum. Really, really smart. What would you do right now if money were no object, if you could not fail? These are amazing questions. So when you teach, whether it's one-on-one or one on 3, 4, 500 or one on 3, 4, 5,000, what's one lesson? What's one message you want people to walk away with?
More than anything, it's always going to be the same one message, and that is that all of us have to learn to love ourselves more unconditionally. And I know that sounds, for some people will be like, yes, please tell me more. And other people, they think it's soft. And I think, just teach me some way to market my business better, or teach me some other thing, that'll give me, create my $1 billion business. And I could use some expletives. I won't do it on your show right now. I know on my podcast that I would drop a few choice words for that right now. But I'm not interested in that. I'm not dissuaded by it. Everything we do is everything we want in life is rooted in love. Everything that we want in life is rooted in love, in our desire to be loved and to be loved. And it's a journey. We're all on our different journeys, but all roads lead to the same exact source, and they flow from the same source. So what does it mean to love yourself more? Well, we're not given great models of that from our parents. Most of our parents didn't know how to love themselves, and many parents aren't even in loving relationships when we're born and when we're kids. In fact, my parents split after 25 years. So, our development, our emotional development, which takes place between birth and in utero and about 7 years old, teaches us some pretty weird things about what love means. And this is no knock on my parents or anybody else's. They all do the best they can with what they've got. They're imprinted themselves with a definition of love that they got from their parents. So it's just, passed down generation to generation, but we can do better. And one way that we can learn how to love ourselves more unconditionally is to take care of ourselves more unconditionally. And so when I teach this, I say, great, we're all learning how to love ourselves more. And by the way, if I say, well, would you want to be the most loving person? You want to spread love and be a model of love in the world to others. Do you want to do that? And everybody will always raise their hand for that. I say, well, you can't give anything you don't possess. meaning you can't share love that you don't understand yourself. So it's not selfish to love yourself. It's actually the most unselfish thing you can do, because the love you know of that you know, the love that you've given yourself is the same brand. It's the same version of love that you will give the rest of the world. So if you're judgmental of yourself, you're judgmental of others. If your love of yourself is conditional, meaning when you behave, when you do well, when you have money in the bank, when things are going your way, you go, oh, I'm a pretty good person. I love myself. And when things aren't going well and people don't want to hang around with you and the money's dried up or your business went bust or any number of other challenges show up, you beat yourself up mercilessly. And that's exactly how that's the brand of love that you share with the world. So we've got to understand and re-understand something that we were born to know, and that is unconditional love. And it begins with self-care. It's a very use the word momentum as part of the book. I teach, moving from clarity into momentum, and I won't speak about that now. Just say that it starts with baby steps, and the first domino, the first little step in the process is simply to learn how to care for yourself properly. So when we talk about, I'll dovetail with what we said earlier about resilience and rituals for resilience. One of those rituals is self-care. So that care could be getting a massage once a week or once a month. It could be taking a 20-minute walk for your head. Clear your head in the middle of the day. It could be spending some time in meditation, or making, really spending time cooking a meal for yourself. It could be going surfing or going to the movies or any number of other things that are you being caring and loving to yourself for no other reason than it feels good. And that becomes a ritual. It becomes something that you ultimately do so that you can learn how to love yourself more fully and unconditionally. And then as a consequence, you also trust yourself that much more, which makes you more trustworthy to others. And it has a beautiful cascading effect on how well your personal life develops, as well as how your business life develops. And it all starts with this tiniest of little steps, which is you recognizing that it's important that you care for yourself and that you love yourself.
I mean, you're talking wisdom, right? So the name of your book is The Art and Science of Reinventing Your Career and Life. Yet the time you spoke today, you talked about morning rituals, love, self-care, gratitude, resilience, and it's amazing. I think you just summed up the whole book in 30 minutes. Now, I still recommend my listeners and my friends and family read this book, because whether you're starting a new life in business, or you're redefining your current life in business, or you're looking to double your life in business or double your time off, here, just, can you plan? Yes. Can you follow the plan? Sure. Can you deviate? Yes, but you might actually have to. You can plan all you want. You can plan and replan. You can set goals and list steps to get there, but you can do all those things and more. But you must never, ever lack a clear plan keep you from moving forward. And a lot of people, I've been teaching this one concept, Adam: learn, implement, teach, learn, implement, teach, learn, implement, teach. And then I have students and business partners that learn for a decade. And the key is in the implementation, right? Mm-hmm. So you've ran the one of the largest personal development training companies in the world. You were the CEO and owner. Now, what's your next chapter? What's your encore?
Well, that's such a great question. I do want to say one thing about the book too, which I know you've read it. So the thing that's really important about Pivot is that it's a process. And that's the part that I think people, they don't always get. So yes, it is about the plan, and foundationally, it's about this process that we spend 12 chapters going through. What is the process to create the clarity so you can make plans? Because too many people go to the planning too quickly. They go to strategy so quickly because it brings them security. When they're lost and confused and they don't know what to do next, they go immediately to what's the next thing I can do? Well, what's the strategy that I can start implementing? But you can't implement a strategy unless you've got clarity. So it's clarity that leads to the ability to then take baby steps, to create some actions that put you in momentum, and then ultimately the plan reveals itself. The greater plan, the longer term plan, not the short scarcity plan. How do I stop the body from bleeding or put out the fire in the house? But the long-term vision and the long-term plan. And so to me, that's the key. And so for me, in our business now, we are working with entrepreneurs, and I would say 2/3 of them are women, people that are pivoting either in their careers or in the entrepreneurial space. That's the demographic, 35 to 55 women who are in that space. And we are serving those folks in a way that we didn't serve before. And I'm free to do that now because I'm not running a large company, as you said. Our company is quite small in comparison, and we are working with people primarily online. So we've got an incredible community called Start My Pivot. It's actually a Facebook community, as well as a very large community that we are reaching who are pivoting in their lives in some way. In fact, that the wonderful thing that we are asking our community quite often is, what are you pivoting into? And we find that people are pivoting into some pretty amazing things. A lot of them are wanting to jump into the entrepreneurial world because they want to have their time, but they don't know how to do that. All they've ever known is a job. Or they've been entrepreneurs, and for whatever it is, reason, they haven't been able to get traction in that particular business. So we lead them through the process online, which is pretty amazing, because we always thought that you've got to get people in a room, get them in a seminar, get them in a workshop to be able to create any real, lasting, sustainable transformation. And so when you ask me what's next for you, the horizon that we are now not just looking at, but we're sailing toward, is this horizon where in an online forum, we can actually do deep dive transformational work with people. And that's what we've been doing for the last year and a half. So we lead an amazing workshop, which is called the Pivot Incubator Program. It's done online. We also do speaker workshops, level 1 and level 2 master classes for people who want to become public speakers or develop their speaking and thought leadership platforms. But that's not the online piece of it. The online piece are people primarily pivoting, looking for clarity, looking to create that plan, but are willing to go through the process before they get to the planning stage. And so over the course of 8 weeks, people have a life-altering experience by going through the process and surrendering themselves to something that unfolds over time if they put the work in. So we've got a beautiful community, as I said. You can, for folks that want to find out more about that community or want to get a gift. And I love this as there's nothing, we're not selling anything. It's just a gift, but to me, the most important thing that at the outset is that we get some additional clarity. We've got a kickstart guide with 6 questions that help people to get clear on where they are in the process. Are they at the beginning of the process of pivot, or are they somewhere in the middle, or even nearing the end, which is great as well. And that Kickstart guide, people can access that at startmypivot.com. So startmypivot.com is where they can access this free guide, this Kickstart guide. And again, nothing being sold, just an opportunity for them to, as you said earlier, get clear through questions. There's 6 questions. They've got to answer them honestly. And if they do that, if they take those few minutes to answer those questions honestly, the light bulb starts to twist and get lit in a way that maybe they didn't expect. And it's amazing. And then if they want to access either our podcast or the Facebook group, all of that's free. You can get those resources on startmypivot.com as well.
Awesome. Well, Adam, I know you are traveling around the world. You're back-to-back meetings. The fact that you took time out of today to collaborate with us in the spirit of the law of collaboration. You talked about your morning rituals in the spirit of the law of gratitude. My biggest takeaway is going from a midlife crisis to a midlife calling. We spoke about rituals, gratitude, strategy. You talked about life, family, love, and business. We talked about self-care. We talked about getting clear. And we talked about getting some free gifts at Start My Pivot. This is Adam Markel, one of the top trainers in the world today, one of the top thought leaders in our space. I'm just proud to call you a friend, mentor, a mentor of mine, coach, and also a hashtag collaborator as we're creating this movement. And my name is Drew Berman. You can visit me at drewberman.com. Come visit us at the Law of Collaboration podcast, where we bring some of the top influencers and top thought leaders in the world today. We love and appreciate each and every one of you. And I end each call the same way. I say, namaste, namasko. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you at the Law of Collaboration. I'm at drewberman.com. Don't forget to visit Adam at startmypivot.com. Bye, everyone.